resources to extract from agriculture. It was bone dry, and therefore we had an agricultural crisis when the rains failed, and fortunately at that time Lal Bahadur Shastri was the Prime Minister. He called in a few scientists and agricultural scientists and put together a package called the Green Revolution Package, what came to be known as Green Revolution Package. 10% of our farmers were able to use it, and that's what produced the Green Revolution. From then on, we were never being at the margin, even though today new kinds of problems have arisen by which the farmers are committing suicide. That is because of a different issue. But the fact is that the production of food in India is now sufficient. So, why did Jawaharlal Nehru do that? Of course, because he was very much enamored of the Soviet model. The Soviet model has failed everywhere. I got into trouble with Delhi University, as you heard Mr. Shastri mentioned, because I was anti-communist. I was born anti-communist. What could I do? It's a genetic flaw in me. And the domination was that of the communists. And they didn't know this when they wanted me back. And soon enough, I began writing articles on the bomb and the self-reliance and Swadeshi. And they felt this is all disguised Hindutva. And they blocked me from accepting a professorship. They knew that I was not. I was already an associate professor, about to become a full professor at Harvard. There was no question of my accepting anything less. So they offered me a lower rank. I said, go to hell. And I went and taught for about 3 years in IIT till the communists find I was poisoning the minds of the students. Not in classrooms, but later on in the evening in the hostels, addressing meetings. And found that I was advocating trade union rights, which they felt was a dangerous thing where the right wing gets hold of the labor. So I was sacked. But at that time I kept saying, and I remember visited by, I had joined a panel with EMS Namboodiripad, and he turned around and told me, why are you for this capitalist model? Look at the socialist model, the Soviet Union, there is no unemployment, there is no poverty, and there is no inflation. So what could I say? I said, well, this is all propaganda. He said, no, you can go and see. I said, if I went to Russia, they will only show me what they wanted me to see. There is no point. But in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed into 16 countries. And then everybody came to know what the truth was. And then I went to Namboodiripad and I said, you said no inflation, no poverty, no unemployment. Now I say no Soviet Union also. So, fortunately, Narasimha Rao got the nerve to break from the past Congress traditions, and then he decided that he would adopt the economic reforms. That's why he sought my help, and I gave him help, I gave him encouragement. Manmohan Singh got all the credit, but I know Manmohan Singh at that time, he was shivering most of the time. Narasimha Rao used to give him encouragement, said, blame it on me, say that I am pushing you, and that this is not what you want. But Narasimha Rao did not get credit, it doesn't matter. The fact is, India discovered that it had the potential to grow fast. And the potential is now to be multiplied in new forms. What do we need to do today to develop the economy? Well, I would divide that analysis by first pointing out to you that economics is not as simple a subject as common sense. Many people should think that they know economics just because they know some few words. And this has been a bane in our government also. People who don't know any economics are being asked to make decisions on economics. Economics is a real science. That's why the Nobel Committee has decided to award a Nobel Prize for economics as a science. They have declared it as a science. And there are many things which people think is common sense. It doesn't happen in real life. For example, if any common man will tell you that if prices rise, demand will fall. Answer is wrong, not always. sometimes. If prices rise, the demand also might rise. How can that be possible? It's possible because it happened in the Irish famine. It was first discovered that when prices rose, then they found that the amount they used to eat of potatoes was insufficient if they bought it at the new price. So therefore they cut their consumption of other things and shifted that money to purchase of potatoes. So the purchase of potatoes increased, so demand also increased, price also increased. It's called the Giffen paradox in economics. So it's possible a situation where prices rise and demand also rises. It's also possible if prices fall, demand can fall, because you find that you can buy the same amount that you were buying before for less money. So what you do is you buy other better things, higher quality rice instead of the lower quality rice. You shift that extra money. So this is called the income effect of a price change. So therefore there is no law which says that the prices move in one direction. The other thing has to happen the opposite direction. And this is what the governor of the Reserve Bank doesn't know. And that's because he was not educated at Harvard but at Chicago, which is an inferior place. And therefore he doesn't know basic economics. He has been advocating that to control inflation, interest rates have to be raised. That's a very funny way to control inflation. But if you raise inflation, there are other effects also. Investment will go down because who will invest with such high cost of capital? So it's like suggesting that the best way to reduce the temperature of a patient is to kill him, because once he's dead, the temperature is bound to come down. This is not the way to run an economy. So the economy is an integrated system. And you do one thing here, it has an effect somewhere else. It's a general equilibrium system, as we say in technical economics. And therefore, every policy has to be weighed on its total impact on the economy, not in one aspect. I have advocated many times that income tax should be abolished. Now everybody thinks this is a revolutionary concept. But who pays income tax? Agriculturalists, rich agriculturists don't pay income tax. There's no income tax in agriculture, by the way. And the poor don't pay income tax because they are below the cut-off limit. And the rich also don't pay much income tax because they've got chartered accountants who can fudge accounts left, right and center, show everything as expenses. Till 1996, Dhirubhai Ambani did not pay 1 rupee income tax, let me tell you that. And G.D. Birla used to show a total annual income of 18,000 rupees. Everything else was in expenses. Car expenses, house expenses, everything was in form of expenses, which were being written off for income as income tax deduction. So therefore, the people who pay income tax are people like you, who are middle class, upper middle class, professional class, who earn money the straight way, and therefore you're compelled to pay income tax. You are caught at the source. Some of you are in sources. But look at the impact of income tax abolition. The income tax abolition immediately means that you will save that extra money which goes to the government. Indians are not great spenders. We have one of the highest savings rates in the world. And that savings goes up, then the investment will go up. If investment goes up, growth rate will go up. And through indirect taxes, you will raise more resources than if you than the amount you lose by abolishing income tax. Or not only that, why should I raise revenue for the government only through income tax? There are 1,000 other ways to raise money. For instance, instead of giving away spectrum licenses, you auctioned it, you get 2 lakh crore rupees for the 2G spectrum. And that is the total amount of revenue you get from income tax. So what's the difficulty in, now of course our government is auctioning spectrum 2G spectrum, we have got 2 lakh crores. Can this continue every year? Of course, because the technology of spectrums also is changing. Now it's going to 3G to 4G, then go to 5G. What is the difference? Of course, it's a question of what these airwaves, in what cycles they go, and the amount of information it discloses. In a 1G wireless set, you will only be able to make a phone call. In a 2G, you will be able to send SMS, you will be able to send email, you will be able to send your pictures. In 3Gs, you can have video of yours talking and somebody else picking up the phone. And 4G, you can send 10,000 pages of documents. So all these can be, for at least for the next 25 years, you will have opportunity to auction these things and get money. Coal blocks, if you auction today, we are about to auction it, you will get 11 lakh crores. That is the amount you would get, which is what? Which is 5.5 times the income tax revenue. Income tax revenue, I'm sorry to say, is used by politicians to harass people, and they feel very upset that income tax, if it's abolished, then we will lose control over you. And that is why there's a huge resistance to my proposal. But ultimately, I will get it through because I never give up once I start something. So, what is the problem with the Indian economy today? We may say we are growing at 7% per year, but this 7% is not the 7% of the old method of calculating national income. There has been a subtle change which very few people have noticed. It's come in the papers, but people have not noticed. And that is, earlier on we were valuing production in calculating national income in 2004 prices. Mr. Jaitley has decided he will value it at 2014 prices. Now 2014 prices are higher than 2004 prices. And so, for the same production, it will give you a higher value. So, this is the index number thing for which I earned a great deal of name because I jointly authored a paper on the theory of index numbers with Paul Samuelson, which is considered a classic. And this whole index number is a big trick. You've got to be very careful. And so, this is the latest year prices are being used to value national income. So you are getting an artificially higher rate of growth. Of course, all the previous years will also have a higher rate of growth, but who cares about the previous years? Today the media only talks about 7% growth rate. If you valued it by 2004 prices, you would get a growth rate of 5%, which is nothing. India needs to grow between 10 to 12% per year. If India needs to grow at the rate of 10 to 12% per year for about 10 years, we will become a developed country. How do you grow at 10 to 12% per year? In very simple logic, it is if you use your capital very efficiently and you have a rate of investment which is domestic savings plus foreign direct investment. If your rate of investment is 36% and you use your capital efficiently by, according to say Japanese standards or South Korean standards, then you will get 12% per year with a 36%. What is the present rate of savings? Only 32%. The present rate of investment, 32%. It can easily be pushed up to 36% by abolishing income tax, and you will get 12% growth rate, and that will give you a great deal. But growth rate is not enough. You have to see its structuring. I think the most important thing for us is for the agricultural sector to get a big boost in the coming 3-4 years. Agriculture is the sector with the maximum potential for India, let me tell you. Everything is going for us except our attention. We are not paying the attention that we should pay. The yield per acre in India on one plot of land is far less than a yield per acre for the same crop in, say, South Africa, Egypt, or Japan. Of course, it's lower than Vietnam and all these Philippines and all these countries. Why can't we raise it? Of course we can raise it. Because the Indian Council of Agricultural Research shows that on experimental plot with assured water, fertilizer and pesticide, they are able to produce 5 times more than what is produced by the farmer on his land. If the same part of India, the same mud can produce with better technology in terms of science 5 times more, what is the difficulty for us to produce 5 times more? 5 times of grain, 5 times of rice, all these things, if they go quintuple times, there will be huge surplus in our country. What do you do with that surplus? You export it. Most of the countries, the price of rice, wheat is more than our country, much more than us, 3 times, 4 times. But we don't have an agreement with them. They jealously guard their borders despite the WTO and so on, and we have not put up a fight at all. The WTO provides you to quarrel with other countries on the barriers that they put, the tariffs they put,
trade barriers,
and see that their agriculture, they allow our products to come. If our products go, agriculture products like rice, wheat, vegetables, they start going to milk, they start going to Europe and America, I can tell you their agriculture will go to dogs. That means they will have to close it down because it's much more expensive. And that is why they put these barriers. But we can work it out, because they want to come to our country. They want to come bring Walmart to our country. Walmart, it should not come to our country just now because Walmart gets loans from their banks at 2% interest rate. They want to come to India and participate in this cheap labor pool that we have here. Well, that's fine, but the fact is that we have millions of traders. They get capital at 12% interest rate, 14% interest rate. They want it quickly, they have to go to the informal market and get a 25% interest rate. Half the suicides of the farmers are also because of the same. Because the capital, access to capital is so poor in India. And therefore, they will have to get loans at 12%, 14%, 18%, maybe even 25%, while Walmart will get it at 2%. And both Walmart and our traders will have to compete for the same labor force. And when that happens, the price of labor will also go up, making it impossible for our traders to survive. And crores of traders will become destitute, and we can't allow that. But of course, if the Americans allow our farmers to export to America and also take loans from American banks, then I know no problem that they're coming with Walmart here. As long as they're allowed to. This kind of argumentation has not been done. And I'm telling you, with the Americans and the Europeans, the only way is bargaining. If I may recall a personal event, in 1991 there was a Gulf War, the first Gulf War. Senior George Bush was in power. And Saddam Hussein had grabbed Kuwait and taken it over and annexed it. And so there was a war. The Americans went to battle to liberate Kuwait. So at that stage, we were in great difficulty because VP Singh had completely exhausted our treasury, and we were faced with bankruptcy or even default of payments of the past thing. So Mr. Chandrasekhar asked me, can you help out, get some money from the IMF? IMF was not ready. They said, no, these are the conditions you have to follow. And those are terrible conditions we could not accept. But just as I was in a gloomy mood, I found the American ambassador walking to my office and then asking me whether India would cooperate with the United States in this war. I said, of course. But he said, yeah, we want our planes coming from Philippines to refuel in India. and then go on to Saudi Arabia so that they can participate in the war. So I said, well, fine, I mean, there has to be some quid pro quo in this. They said, yes, we'll give you 3 times the landing charges you charge commercial flights. I said, you want me to change policy from never allowing any foreign country to land its plane to in your favor, and you are giving me these peanuts. I will not accept these. So sorry, it can't be done. So he said, what do you want? I said, I want $2 billion without conditions from the IMF. So he said, what we have got to do with the IMF? I said, don't bluff me. You got 87% of the vote in IMF belongs to the Americans. You see, in IMF, the vote is not on the basis of one country, one vote. It's based on how much you donate to the funds of the IMF. And Americans, Japanese, and all these American allied countries donate 87% of the money to the IMF. So I said, you have 87% of the vote. Don't tell me you can't get this thing through. You can't get it through, no problem. Then you go and find some other country. Go to Pakistan or some place like that, where you can land your planes and probably have it blown up by some terrorist. So he said, all right, but when do you want it? I said, Monday. He said, but today is Friday. I said, yes, but in Washington it's Thursday night, so there's no problem. But the whole day ahead of you. Come back on Monday with a check or don't come. And he came back with a check, $2 billion.
Wow.
So the same way we should negotiate on FDI the same way. You want to come? All right, you allow me to do this in your country. Our advantage is cheap labor. Our advantage is cheap products, you see. Look at milk. I mean, Europe, the price of milk is 7 times the price of milk in India. And we have got, 150 million cows. The average yield of a cow is only 200 liters per year, because they are not given proper nourishment. But an average yield of an Israeli cow is 11,000 liters per year.
My God.
So imagine that 150 million cows start giving you 11,000 liters of milk. Well, I will be coming to this meeting swimming in milk. That will be in this country. So I am saying there is nothing. The same way I point out to people, ours is the only country. God has given us the benefit of 12 months of sunshine. We can grow 3 crops a year, 3 cropping seasons. America cannot, because 5 months of the year they have snowfall. So there is no agriculture possible. Same thing with Europe. Even China, 2/3 of China has snowfall. So India is the only country where you can grow crops 3 times a year, and that means tripling of the production without any additional investment or additional land. So the potential is tremendous, and we have to use it. So we must therefore globalize agriculture. The way to do it is to ensure that every farmer is able to export. Teach him how to use the internet. E-commerce has now become a way of the future. Through e-commerce he can find out. Help him with packing industries. Bring international standards. For instance, if you want to export milk, you have to have it properly pasteurized, properly packed. You want to export flowers, you need to see that it's packaged in such a way it doesn't rot and it reaches in time. It means that you must have, every district must have an airfield where freight planes can take off, cold storages. These are the focuses that need to be done. And therefore, if you do, agriculture will produce abundance in your country. And you can use that money then for industrialization, building your infrastructure. So this is the first thing I suggest. I'm sorry that has not been done so far. Maybe by next year things might change, because sometimes you see you can't do change yourself, but change gets imposed from above due to certain events or some scandal or something which brings about changes in personnel. So therefore, I am confident that there is enough for in our setup in the party to see that these things get implemented. So agriculture should be the first thing, way forward is The focus should be on agriculture. Second thing is that let us recognize one thing. Growth is not more capital, more labor. Yes, more labor, more capital will produce more growth, but with smaller and smaller additions as you put more and more capital and labor into it. That's called the law of diminishing returns. So what is the way? The way is by innovation. What made England become an industrial power? It was not more capital and more labor. It was locomotives, railways, Bessemer steel plant.
Industrialization.
This created what is called as the Industrial Revolution, and it transformed it. Incidentally, Britain also abolished income tax from 1815 to 1842 to bring in new savings into the economy, and it worked very successfully. And once they had achieved the Industrial Revolution, they brought back the income tax. So the same, it's a demonstrated fact. Similarly, United States. What was the United States? New innovations. All through the United States has been ahead for the last 100 years through innovations. First it was the integrated production system. Then it was the question of jet airlines, jet planes, transnational marketing, fax machines, telex machines. And finally, the thing that turned America around again in the last decade of the 20th century was Internet. Internet has completely changed the way we do business. You can do transnational business sitting in New York with 7-8 countries, your factories in 7-8 countries, and coordinate through the Internet. Video conferencing. So these are new, and more such are coming. For India, the innovation waiting to happen is the transformation of our economy away from oil-based to nuclear fuel-based. I'm not talking of uranium, I'm talking of thorium. We got 60% of the world's thorium. Uranium will get exhausted by 2050. And then the whole world will turn towards thorium. And we get thorium lying on the sands of Kerala and Tamil Nadu. And all you have to do is scoop it up. When Homi Bhabha was there, he had recognized there are 3 stages for refining the monazite that you get from the sands into thorium, and 2 stages he had cracked. And then after that we have not proceeded for. Let us move in that. It's the cleanest form of nuclear energy, and it can give you electricity in abundance. You can have electricity as you have never seen before. So this is one area. Similarly, instead of cars running on gasoline, you can have cars running on hydrogen fuel cells. These are batteries where you charge it overnight, and next day you can travel 300 kilometers without recharging. And if you have, instead of petrol stations, you have charging stations, then of course it becomes like any other. And therefore this dependence on oil will go, and it will enormously increase our foreign exchange availability. Why are we not doing that? Because I don't know. Japan is doing it. Now by the end of this year, they are bringing out a car with hydrogen fuel cells. We can also do it. And of course, if we do it, the Arabs will suffer. They will have to go back to their tents and their camels. So no more they will get the oil revenues anymore. So maybe terrorism also will disappear with that. So I think, therefore, we have to recognize that innovation is crucial. Who does the innovation? Innovation is done by young people coming out of colleges, universities, motivated, provided with the inspiration. They are the ones who will do it in any country. And look at India. We have got the youngest population of the world. Average age of an Indian is only 26. The average age of a Chinese is 35. Why? Because they foolishly went at the Western urging to 1 child per family. Family planning, control. Mrs. Gandhi tried that in the emergency, and the people taught her a lesson. So after that, I'm not against family planning, but it should be something where you incentivize people to do it, not force them to do it. And people are sensible enough to know how many children they should have, and you should enable them to control their family size. And we are finding it now. Our growth rate is going down, but slowly. And that's how it should go down. It was 2.2% 20 years ago. Now it is down to 1.7. Of course, the Hindu rate of growth is going down faster than others because we have not made the other communities, one community in particular, conscious of family planning. But we need to do that because family planning is secular. Nobody can say it's communal. And it's important because there are some political consequences of a declining Hindu population. The Hindu population is committed to democracy, secularism, and so on. And that we have seen that the Islamic community, wherever they are in majority, there is no democracy and there is no secularism. You have to visit Saudi Arabia or Qatar or Iran or any other of these Muslim majority countries. And it's not a criticism of them, but this is the way they are. We are the way we are because we are cantankerous people. We disagree, we argue, we shout at each other. We sometimes shout too much, like in Arnab Goswami's program. But the fact is that keeping that in mind, because we did not get forced by the Americans to do a forcible family planning, today we have the youngest population in the world, 26 years old. 70% of the population is below the age of 35. This is the crowd that we need now to educate. Education has become extremely important. We must make access to education, not necessarily in terms of buildings and grounds and so on, but through online. EDX is a new program that the MIT people have created, by which you can sit virtually in the classrooms of Harvard and MIT and take courses and take examinations. So there are new technologies which will make it easy to reach semi-rural towns and the rural areas. So this is the focus that the challenge for us is how to convert this huge demographic dividend, as it's called, into producing innovations. We have to motivate our people. We have to encourage our people to try and do something. Our country, we have been risk-averse people. We hate risk. We want everything to be stable. But we have to now educate our people to think in these terms. These are some of the areas where we have to move forward. And the last but most important thing is, the secret of China's success is that they were able to get semi-processed goods from East Asia, add value to it in terms of its casing and its, take for instance the computer, the laptop. They get it from Taiwan and then they add to it the cover and the keyboards and so on, and that is called Lenovo. And then they put a stamp, made in China. Most things called made in China are not made in China. They're made in East Asia. All that is done is value added. But that value added is an expensive part in the cost. So the Chinese are able to do it cheaply. So East Asians also find it worthwhile to send it to China, get it value added, and then send to Europe. And that's why China has a deficit with East Asia and a surplus of trade with the West. And that's how they are getting their foreign exchange. What if these East Asians can be persuaded to come through India and get their value added done by India? I asked the Japanese, I asked the South Koreans, they said there's only one thing wrong with you. Your infrastructure is lousy and your corruption system is terrible. In China, you bribe the politician, everybody else does the work. But in your country, you have to bribe all the way down to the chaprasi. And that's the problem that we find harassing. So, therefore, these are curable things. They can be cured, in my opinion, both building infrastructure as well as, if we can manage to divert that, it will collapse the Chinese economy and it will give us a huge boost, because these East Asian countries are not at all pro-Chinese. They are in fact pro-democracy. They would be happier to do business with
China
us.
Is an imperialist
because we have patent laws, we have courts and so on. And these are some of the great opportunities that lie ahead of you. It requires a great deal of focus, And so far it has not been possible for a variety of reasons. But don't despair. If there's anybody who can do it, it is us who can do it. And we intend to do it. We've still got 4 years to go. And I'm sure that the turnaround in the economy would take place. Thank you very much.
We will have a question and answer session. He has to rush to the airport. So the question and answer session will be 10 to 15 minutes. An individual can ask only one question. Question should be crisp and pointed. And my colleague Ashish Singh is holding a wireless microphone. You can raise your hands. He will come and you can speak.
So actually, I'm really thankful to have you here and best of luck for Asaram Babu case, which we are going to do in next week. My question is basically regarding, we are talking about BHU, in context to BHU. So what's your next step is going to regarding Gyanvapi temple rather than Gyanvapi mosque?
That's outside economics, huh? You want me to answer? Gyanvapi is the Kashi Vishwanath.
Excuse me.
See, I have a formula of negotiated settlement for all temples, where a masjid has been built after breaking the temple, either totally or partially. It's been partially broken up in Mathura, partially broken up in Kashi Vishwanath, largely broken up in Kashi Vishwanath, and totally broken up in Ayodhya. The Muslim clerics of Saudi Arabia, who are the final authority for Sunnis, and the clerics in Iran, who are the final authority for Shias, both have told me in my interaction with them that we do not consider a masjid as anything more than a prayer hall. And therefore in our country it is permissible under the Sharia to either shift a masjid or demolish it for the purpose of some vital construction like an apartment building or building a road. And they do it all the time. So therefore, if it can be done there, I think we should engage with the Muslim community here and tell them that during the Islamic period in India, it's wrong to call it Islamic period, during the rulership of parts of India, because not ever the whole of India was ruled by Islam, parts of India by Islam, about 40,000 identifiable temple areas were demolished and masjids built on it. So therefore, we, in these three, forget about all the others, these three are very important. We will find you an alternative place and help you build a masjid there. If they agree to that, then it can be done. If they don't agree to it, then the government has a right to acquire it as per the Supreme Court judgment of 1994, Farooqi versus the Union of India, which in the context of the Ayodhya dispute and the demolition of the Babri Masjid, the Supreme Court held two things. One, mosque is not an essential part of Islamic religion. And two, for a public purpose, government can acquire the area of a mosque and use it for public purposes. So the government can do it. And I have written a letter, which probably may be published tomorrow in the Samar papers, to the Prime Minister, that from 1916 this process must begin, because we have made a commitment that it will be done. And I think we need to interact with the Muslim community to make them see reason, because if it's happening in Saudi Arabia, it's happening in Qatar, it's happening in Pakistan, it's happening in Turkey, why it can't happen in India. So therefore, I think there is hope for a settlement very soon.
He has to be fast in selecting,
Yes.
otherwise he's wasting time.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy. I
Yeah.
think you have cited very valuable examples from economic history. Going forward with the current agenda that the BJP government has, to create growth, what in your opinion is the right way to do it? Would you want to massage the supply side of the economy or the demand side? And if you look at what Jaitley has proposed in the current valuation, do you foresee at least in the next 5-10 years a situation like the Greek crisis? Because Greek has also kind of changed their valuation just to get into or stay in the European Eurozone. So what are your thoughts on this?
No, the Greek and European problems like Spain and others, they've got to do more with the outcomes arising from their demographic position. That is, earlier on, a lot of people entered their labor force, and then fewer people retired, and they lived much less. So this whole pension system that they have, which we don't have, that is, all people in these European countries have a right to a pension, as well as if they are unemployed, unemployment compensation. So that budget now has got screwed up because there are much fewer people coming into the labor force because they are now reduced to 1 child per family, 0 child per family. Their population growth rate has vastly decreased, and the number of people, therefore, relatively leaving the labor force after retirement is increasing, and they are living longer also. So, therefore, they have what is called as a pension bomb, and their budget is getting destabilized mainly because of that. It's not being highlighted very much, but this is the factor. So we and Greece are not comparable. In our things, it's all self-made problem. Partly because we have done wrong things to help the corrupt people, like this participatory notes, which has enabled a lot of money to go out of the country, and not only that, come back in a legal form, earn money here, and go back again through the Hawala route abroad. So these financial instruments that we have introduced over the last decade has been responsible for much of our economic problems, and they are rectifiable by different methods than what Greece can be. Greece is I think the whole of Europe and Japan are in a big demographic problem, and it's not easy to rectify it. Maybe they should import labor from India. That is one way. We have plenty of people to send. Yeah. So no more questions because the time is up. Huh? So you can send me an email, I'll reply to you. Swamy39@gmail.com. But spell Swamy SWAMY.
So when can we expect you to become the finance minister, sir?
When my colleagues cease to be afraid of me putting people in jail.
Thank you so much, sir, and thanks audience for your question. Now I would request Mr. Ramanoj Mishra for